Okay, you're now live.
Thank you, Lizzie. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting of the Personnel Committee. I am Councillor Dennis Pennyworth, the chairman of the committee. In addition to myself, the other members of the committee in attendance are Councillors Jeff Brooks, who's the vice chairman, Lynn Doherty, and B. Aloko. Paula Goodwin, Harriet Saunders, and Samantha Hodson are the officers who will be advising the meeting. Sadie Owen is the clerk to the meeting, and Lizzie Reeves is the Zoom host. Do members have any questions about the way in which the meeting will be conducted before we proceed? Good. I will just ask you to make sure when you are speaking that your microphone is turned on, and conversely, your laptops and phones set to silent. On to item 1 now. Apologies. Sadie, have we received any apologies for today's meeting?
Yeah, from councillors Tom Marino and Adrian Abbs.
Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes. We've got 2 sets of minutes to approve this evening. Members, are you willing to accept the minutes of the meeting of the 15th of July 2022 as being true and accurate? Or any comments? Councillor Brooks.
I have comments and some follow-ups that I wanted to be sure. I wanted to be sure had been done or actioned. Don't know when you want to take that, Chairman.
We'll take it now, Councillor Brooks, as we're...
Okay, so the employee attitude survey, I don't remember if I got that. So I'd like a follow-up on that, please. And also I asked much more data on the temporary agency spend, even down to potentially getting commissioning to come forward with that information. So those are 2 that I noticed. I wonder if Paula could tell us if they've been followed up on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Paula, over to you.
In the minutes, it says that I would take away a request to look at the request to send out further information on the EAS and staff survey. I think the decision is that we wouldn't share more fully at this stage. Councillor Doherty was involved in some of the feedback sessions that we had in relation to the staff survey. So we took the request away, and full information hasn't been shared with any parties. So we've given brief feedback to members that were involved in those conversations, but we won't be providing further information through.
Thank you for that, Paula. Sorry you're caught in the middle of it. I'll put in a freedom of information request. Thank you.
And the agency spend.
So there was a request for a member of commissioning to come to the meeting. In relation to the minutes, HR don't have responsibility for the commissioning arrangement through Commensurate and the contract arrangement. So again, I think that probably is better picked up elsewhere rather than coming through Personnel Committee.
Would anybody recommend where we should pick it up?
So I think the agency spend is reported as part of the financial quarterly reports and any overspend. So I think that questions can be raised there. I think the other option would be, if members have concerns about agency and how that's being managed, would be to request that the chairman of Overview and Scrutiny appoint a task group to look at that and what we're doing to manage that, if members have concerns about its robustness.
It's not just robustness, it's in fact it's gone up dramatically year on year, but I'll take it to another place.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Is that you out? Yep. Okay. Other councillors, please. No. So, given those points raised by Councillor Brooks, are we happy that the minutes can be accepted as a true record? Councillor Doherty, sorry.
I think Councillor Doherty is proposing to second the minutes if you're proposing them from the chair.
I'll propose them from the chair. Thank you, Doherty, to second.
And then a vote.
And a show of hands, please. Thank you very much. That is carried. And I will sign those off now as we have another set to come. Okay, and the second set of minutes that we have relate to the meeting of the 9th of February. I'll take some advice on this, as we were only one member of this committee was present on that date. I'll turn to the monitoring officer, Sarah Clark, please, for some advice.
Yes, I think, Chairman, you have Councillor Doherty who was in attendance at that meeting, as in fact was I. And I think if the members were only going to approve these or be in a position to do so if they were actually present, we had I think 3 substitutes or 2 substitutes, so it's unlikely to be that they could be approved. So I think members on the basis that and I can assure you as monitoring officer that from my perspective, these are an accurate reflection of that meeting. It was a very brief meeting. I think members can proceed to approve these minutes should they wish to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. And as you said prior to the meeting, that should anyone wish to pour over the 2 minutes and 50 seconds of the meeting, they're at liberty to do so on YouTube.
Take less time on minutes than the meeting.
If it helps, I'm happy to propose them as the person
Propose,
that was
second,
there.
and votes. Thank you, Councillor Doherty. I'll just sign those as well. Thank you very much. Okay, on to item 3 now, declarations of interest. Sadie, have we had any
None received, no chair.
declarations? Nope, nothing. Nope, thank you very much. Item 4, update on HR activity, Q1 and Q2 of 22-23. I turn to Paula Goodwin to introduce the report.
Okay, so this report is an information only report and is a 6-monthly report that we bring to Personnel Committee in relation to HR activity. It covers Q1 and Q2 of 2022-23, which I appreciate is now a little bit dated because of the fact it's April to end of September 2022. And obviously there will be a further report to the next Personnel Committee for the full year, which is what we've done before. I'm not going to go through the report in detail. I'm assuming everybody's read the report. What you have in the room is kind of a few of us from HR, so just Harriet and Sam, who will be able to answer questions in relation to some of the sections in the report. Happy to go through anything particular if you want, but I think it's, as you've all read it, it's probably easier just to respond to questions that are in there.
Thank you very much, Paula. And it's to questions I go. Members, would you like to put a question to Paula? Please, Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I've got 3. I'll start with sickness absence on page 23. 7.10. That's an awful lot of other, 20.5%. It's gone up dramatically from 7.6% in comparison to last year. And is it being used as a bucket? Can we get more information on what some examples of the 20.5% that have gone into the other bucket?
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. And that's one. Well, we'll take them in turn, I think. And that's one I'd highlighted myself. We're looking at sort of 300% increase. Who'd like to pick that up, please?
I'm happy to pick that up. The absence reasons are those submitted by managers in the main. So other will cover a raft of reasons, some of which will be so singular that it would be difficult to pull those out specifically because it might identify people. But I'm very happy to take that away and do a bit more of a deep dive into that to understand what that is. Anecdotally, what we were starting to see during that period was things like some long COVID absence, some of those conditions that don't necessarily have a specific absence reason. So some of that we will be able to tease out. Some of it will just be a bucket, but for reason of the fact that we don't record every single reason for absence because the list would just be too long to manage.
Okay. And is that something that you'll be able to bring back to this committee
I absolutely can. Yes.
Later date. Okay,
Yes.
thank you
No
very
problem
much.
at all.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brooks, your second question.
I think, Chairman, I was just noticing, looking at paragraph 7.11, it sort of says that the overall reasons for sickness absence, and it lists stress at 24%, but then infections at 19.3, and that refers to the comparison at 7.6. So I don't know whether that's some indication, although there's still other at 16.7% there. So
I think, Chairman, coming back on that before I put my second question, have the managers got enough categories and ability to feed this back? I understand the sensitivity around potentially identifying a very obscure case. I get that, but we're not talking about loads of obscure cases here. There's got to be trend in that. I know you're only the scorers, but are you getting the information to be able to unpick that? Because we can get in a habit of just chucking it into another bucket and we never really get to understand what's going on.
I think potentially the issue is that we have too many absence categories. So actually, they have to be aggregated to give a meaning to the data. So rather than one case of something and one case of something, historically those have been gathered together. But I will certainly do a little bit more of a deep dive.
Okay, so that's something that can come
We're
back.
confident, I'll take my second question in a moment, we're confident that we are getting certificates, medical certificates to support absences. That's a robust process.
Statutory sick pay is dependent on production of a fit note from a doctor, or that means that it doesn't now have to be from a doctor from 2022 onwards. That's changed. So it can be, for example, a physiotherapist, a chiropractor. But for any absence over 7 days, yes, for sick pay to be paid, a medical certificate has to be, or a manager has to confirm that a medical certificate has been supplied.
Okay. I'll go on to my next one, is the number of resignations in education, Chairman. I expect you picked this up as well. 50 in the period, with 394 headcount at the end of the period. Now, there might have been some recruiting back, so I can't easily work out what the percentage is of the whole of adult social care, but it looks a high percentage of leavers in that period. And then my other one is more general. We talk about casework, and I'm looking for some examples of what a case is. Again, it's a sort of bucket. Oh, that's a bit of casework. Well, what do you call casework?
Just for context, Councillor Brooks, that final question is in relation to which
Performance management,
and on which page?
number 7, page 20.
Page 20.
So I've got two. One is the high level of leavers in education, adult social care department, and one is around the performance management casework, just to give me some understanding what you call a case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And who'd like to pick that up?
So I could certainly pick up the case on casework. So that's actually covered off in 7.1. So that's really anything that my team will advise on. So that includes disciplinaries, grievance, performance, capability, probation, and sickness, ill health capability issues. It might also include redundancies, restructures, regrading, anything really on which we need to give employment law advice or guidance to managers will fall under the umbrella of casework. Some of that will be a very informal conversation about this is how we suggest you approach the issue. Obviously, if that then becomes a more formal process under the council's employee relations procedures, then that's a much more defined process, and we manage that through with the relevant managers to bring that to a conclusion. But if we need to advise on it, it will be counted as casework. Again, for those ones where it's a one-off here or a one-off there, it won't necessarily be given a category. We will manage it as just under the banner of informal.
Thank you very much.
And the adult social care.
Is that section 5.2? Can I just ask which section we're referring to?
I think that was the one we were looking at, Councillor Brooks, wasn't it? The
So there's a table starting on page
17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adult social
5.2.
care, headcount number of leavers 50.
Yeah.
Headcount of employees at 30th September 394.
Yeah.
Well, what that doesn't tell me is how many you recruited back in the period. Sorry, I'm not using my mic. How many you recruited back in the period? So what did it start? What was the start head count? What was the end head count? That will give us the movement in the period.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't have the data to hand. That's something we can bring back to the meeting.
Does the department head, director of place, not have to give some sort of commentary when it is exceptional like that?
Well, no is the honest answer. No.
Okay, then thank you, Paula. Then I would suggest they do have to. That's director of people. I said place incorrectly. I think for something like that, it sends a red flag up to me to say we could do with more.
Was
detail.
one I noted, councillor Brooks, and yeah.
I mean, we do collate information in relation to reasons why people are leaving. It's quite narrow categories. And there has been a piece of work recently to look at our exit strategy, if you like, our offboarding approach and the way we collate information. So absolutely, we do need to have a look at being better at collecting that type of information, but that is the process as it is at the moment.
I understand that, Chairman. Thank you for letting me coming back. It's really, I'm sure Paula would have spotted that and said, that is exceptional. It's not captured necessarily just by exit interviews and exit process when it is so clearly large in a given area.
And
Something is going on.
Is that, thank you, councillor Brooks, and going on from that, is that something that you can come back to this committee with a little more of a steer on, or is
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly dig deeper into that data and have a look at the reasons that we're given, but like I say, the reasons we're given are quite broad in terms of voluntary leavers, personal reasons, retirements, that kind of thing, but we can certainly have a look at adult social care if that's specifically.
I think that, yeah, I think something would be useful on that, I think. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Members, anything else you'd like to raise with officers? Okay, I think that's us done on that. The report is just for information only and is just to note. We move on then to item 5, the statutory pay policy 2023. Paula, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Yeah, so this is an annual requirement as part of section 38 of the Localism Act 2011. We have to publish an annual pay policy statement. So this report is brought back through Personnel Committee and goes to Council. So the paper you have in front of you is, I guess, a standardised report that is required to go to Council. So we're asking for Personnel Committee to approve the recommendation that this goes through to Council to meet the requirement.
Thank you very much. Members, is there anything you'd like to pick up on there? Just one question, if I may. Clearly, this evolves over time. Is it wildly different year on year, or?
So generally, no. And obviously, unless we change allowances or processes in relation to pay grading, it changes with the pay awards that are given. So obviously last year we have the National Pay Award, which has been implemented, but certainly in the time that I've been at the council, it's not changed dramatically because the way we do our pay and grading and pay policies hasn't changed over that period of time. The figures change because clearly the figures go up each year in relation to the pay awards, but nothing else has changed.
Could I just, with that in mind, and for benefit of current councillors and future councillors, would it be possible to just highlight the track changes in that going forward? And it's probably given that the numbers will change year on year, but other than that, nothing else is likely to change unless presumably goes before council or through this committee.
I mean, I've never been asked to send a paper with track changes on it, but I'm sure we could do something that highlights the differences if that's what members would like.
Members, is there any merit in that, do you think, at all, or just looking around the room?
I don't know about track changes. I mean, I just think if there's something exceptional, we could use it as a highlighted comment. if there was something that stands out, I don't think we need to start going through track changes in reports.
Okay. Okay. But it's a given then that the rates will on year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of numbers within the report and the paper itself. So if we start to see track changes, it could look quite
Okay.
difficult.
Yeah, no, I take your
To
point.
review those, but I think absolutely highlighting where there are significant changes like pay awards, then we could do that.
Yeah.
In the covering paper might be easier.
Yes, yeah, noted. Thank you very much. Okay, members, this goes before council on the, I'm sorry, you're all done. Are you on Councillor Brooks? I do apologise.
One simple thing on page 15 of 16 in the report, page 57 in my paperwork. I note the process flow for additional payments. What's ED stand for?
Executive Director.
Thank you. And my other one is you clearly use hay pay scales to sort of benchmark. Do we look at any other council, basket of councils? I think I might have seen it in there, but I think hay is obviously going to guide us. But would we look at Wokingham? Would we look at Reading? I don't know if it helps, but would we do so?
So we use hay for our job evaluation scheme. So Corn Ferry are the organisation that run the hay scheme. So job evaluation dictates the point score and the level in hierarchy of that job, and then that determines the grade. The grades are then obviously determined by the salaries that are associated with those grades. So we agree our pay awards on the basis of the National Pay Award at this moment in time. So we don't need to track what else is going on in terms of changing our pay grading structure, because there is already a process in place to make those changes. So we obviously from an interest perspective would be looking at what other councils are doing, and we look at LGA and South East employers. But in terms of actually determining what that pay is, there's already a process and a policy in place to allow that to happen.
I don't quite understand that. We're losing staff, and part of that will be pay. So those staff look around to other authorities. I think Paula said we do look at that and then said I don't need to. So I'm a bit confused. We do need to make sure that we are competitive, which I think I'm getting a flavour of we are, but I'm not quite sure I understood your answer.
So if we look at page 51 of the paper, there is our pay scale in there. So that is the pay, that's our pay scale that determines what people get paid. If there is an exceptional circumstance, so if we have a hard to fill post, can't recruit to that post, there is an opportunity to have a look at that specific post and offer an additional allowance that covers what could be deemed to be an exception, because that particular post is hard to fill, and therefore you add a temporary allowance to bridge that gap between where the pay structure is.
Would I see the same pay scale as if I went to Reading Borough or Woking?
No.
Then how do we know that we're competitive with those authorities that may be advertising for staff who work here and trying to lure them away?
So, some of the councils around us are on national pay. So I know Reading's on national pay. So these are local pay scales. These are the pay scales we determine what the pay structure is for this authority. Yeah. What we might do though is if a manager, let me give an example because it might be easier. If there's a planning officer post that we can't appoint to, so it's advertised on a grade with a salary scale. If we can't appoint to that post, we would look around at what's going on in the market, and we would determine whether or not an allowance is suitable to bridge the gap.
That's a little bit after the event. You could have people leaving because they've got a better pay scale elsewhere, and you're playing catch up then. So are we not trying to stay a little bit ahead of how the market is moving?
Obviously, we have to think about equal pay. We have to think about our policies, and we have to act in accordance with our policies. So moving outside of that would create a potential risk from an equal pay perspective. That doesn't mean that we're not looking at what's going on in the market. There is a national issue in relation to recruitment and retention at this moment in time, and there is work going on in HR and with our managers to look at those specific areas of difficulty. So we are looking at it, but we can't just amend pay scales individually for
I
individual
wasn't
posts.
asking you to. I was asking you to look at it against some of those authorities that may be looking to recruit our
A broader
staff.
comparison.
And maybe Samantha, who's come in on talent acquisition and from a recruitment background, I think. This is just the sort of thing you need to keep looking at in a recruitment agency. What's the market doing? And one of your clients, in this case, West Berkshire, could be falling behind another authority, another competitor. We've got to be better at this. We've been losing quite a lot of good staff recently and senior staff at that. So I think there's something here, Chairman. You may not want to prolong it, but I think it's something that needs looking at.
Okay, well, we'll draw that to a conclusion, but how would we take that forward?
I mean, I'm not sure it's in the bounds of the pay policy because this is kind of as is now, and this is what we do. In terms of looking at that, and I suggest it probably is more reflective of what's going on in the other paper. And it is something that we are looking at in relation to HR around the pay structure, the pay grades, and what's going on in the national market. It isn't impacted by what's in here because this is what happens at this moment in time.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe it's something we can be. I'm sorry, Councillor Loco.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure I understand that comment you just made about the response to the chair. I didn't, what does that mean? Does it mean you're going to look at it or you're not going to look at it?
So the request for personnel committee is to approve the pay policy that's in front of you.
I know that, that's why we're here.
Yeah, and therefore the question really is not reflective of what's in the paper because you're asking for me to do something outside of the request for personnel committee to approve what's in the paper. So
is that to say we can't ask the question? Because it's not in the policy. The chair has already spoken on that and you said, how do we close this
Yeah,
out?
Councillor, I think we'll just bring our minds back to the paper that is in front of us, and we've noted it, and we will vote on it accordingly. Where we take the I just feel we're slightly wandering off piece here. I take Councillor Brooks's point, but it's something for another day. I think, to be honest with you, maybe something we can take up with.
Can we request it on a future agenda?
I think that would be
for this committee, because it is this committee that looks at hiring.
I think that would be an appropriate place for it, Councillor Brooks, and also give officers maybe a chance to do a little more homework on that. Okay, we've had a run through this, given it a fair go. Are we happy then, councillors, to put this before council on the 16th of March? I'd like to propose that we do. Councillor Doherty, second, in favour. And Councillor Brooks, abstain? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item number 6, the date of the next meeting. The provisional date set for the next meeting of the Personnel Committee is the 4th of July at the same time of 6 p.m. That concludes the business for this evening. Thank you all very much, and good night to you all.